time for Licking on Lending.
Welcome, everybody. Good to have you with us.
Welcome to Licking on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update providing up-to-the-minute information on interest rates, loan programs, and hot industry news, all related to the mortgage industry. Brought to you by Transformational Mortgage Solutions. To participate in today's program, our guest call-in line is 646-716-4972. Now here's your host of Licking on Lending, David Lickin.
Let's begin.
Listeners, we are on today with a bit of a celebrity in our industry. Now, he's a humble guy, so he's going to say, I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a guy that likes to get things done. Bill Cosgrove is here with us. He is the founder of Union Home, and he has done such a great job leading our industry. Union Home Mortgage has been a leader, and Bill Cosgrove has been a leader in industry, starting the Independent Mortgage Bankers Association. You see, there's people that see a problem, and there's people that do something about the problem. Our guest today, Bill Cosgrove, is someone who does something about the problem. Bill, so good to have you here. Appreciate you joining in.
Happy to, Dave. It's great to see you and Alice and Mark and the interns, the invisible interns, right?
And we're going to talk about the invisible interns, but Alice and Mark, thank you so much for joining in on this. I appreciate you, Alice. I know how busy they keep you there. So for you to carve out a little more time out of the regular podcast to join us in this interview. And it's really important, Alice, because we want to get your perspective on what you see. You're known to our audience so well each week, Alice, and your perspective of what you see there can only enrich our conversation today. So, and we want to focus. And of course, Mark, thank you so much. A bit of a veteran and a legend in his own time is Mark Helms. So we appreciate you all being here. Mark, when you think about leadership, Mark, you look at people who do something and make something happen. And that's exactly some of the things we want to talk about. Let's start, Bill, with talking about the industry, where this industry is at. We have just had the biggest highs we've ever had. It's like one of those sugar rushes, you know, you have a big sugar rush over the holidays, and then you crash afterwards. And we've just experienced both. Talk about where we at as an industry. Love to have your thought as an independent mortgage banker.
Well, I think, David, you described it really well. So I still think the industry is, over capacity, although it's shrinking every day, but it's still over capacity. We're all really figuring out that, the margins cannot go to zero. We have to be profitable, and there is a infrastructure that's needed in order to be a national growing world-class mortgage banker. So it cannot be a race to bottom to zero margin. And, there's almost an evolution. There's almost a storyboard that happens when business slows down. People want to lower margin because they think that'll get them more business. And when they realize that, well, not only does it not get them more business, but the business that they actually book is at a loss, then they say, well, this doesn't work. And then they start raising their margin to, again, nowhere near the boom times, but an acceptable margin to pay the bills and be minimal profitable. And I think that's where the market is now. So margins are a little healthier. They're more reasonable, and it is an industry where we're really trying to find the middle ground ecosystem in supply and demand. But at Union Home, we're growing loan officers, we're growing our sales staff, and we're excited about that. But obviously the per loan closings per loan officer is down. So the industry's it's in a down cycle, but yet we're finding a healthy moment, a healthy shelf, so to speak, in that down cycle.
Right. I think if you look, anytime you look, I love trading stocks, trading the markets, and you look at anything you're investing in, you look at the fundamentals underpinning whatever you're investing in. Do we have good fundamentals or do we not? I think that's a rhetorical question. If we were to ask it as a question, we know we have solid fundamentals underneath there, in part because of the interns that you have sitting in that room, because they're up and coming in the industry. I want to get to that because it's one of my favorite things you do so well is bring new blood into our industry. But that group is going to want homes, and they're going to be buying homes. And so when you look at the headwinds of what we're seeing right now, affordability index, availability, and all of that, what are some of your thoughts? How is the leader of one of the top mortgage bankers in the country thinking about our current environment right now?
Well, there's a pent-up demand for home ownership. right? There's many more buyers than there are homes available. And gosh, I go back to when I was chairman of the Mortgage Bankers Association. Now it's old ancient history in 2016. But Alice knows this. We've had the conversation. In my speech that we did 30 times across the country, we talked about a lack of inventory back then. We talked about a lack of new homes being built in the country. And then we also talked about, David, that, I'm old enough now that the homes that I started my loan officer career on was post World War II housing boom. And all that housing now is 60, 70 years old. So you have a phenomena where there is the young generation wants to be homeowners. There's a pent-up demand for home. Rents have skyrocketed, even more so than home values. And so there is a pent-up demand for home ownership. Now what we need to do, there needs to be a national push, a program. I think whoever is the next, president of the United States, and no matter what party they're from, home ownership and housing in America needs to be a priority. And if we can get that right, I think the future of housing in America will be fantastic. But there is a supply crisis in this country that has to be recognized, and there's a plan that has to be put in place to solve. But quite honestly, I think long term, if we can solve, that jigsaw puzzle and create more single family homes, there's a pent up demand for housing in America.
Yeah, which goes back to the fundamentals. I think one of the things that's affecting the pent up demand, at least from a new home building, new home construction, is the amount of regulation that's going into the cost of building homes. It generally across America, it's 30 to 40%. Places like California, as much as 50% of the cost of a home is in regulation. You hear about this, and that's just got to get fixed. And then you talk about also, we want to have a home. I mean, Bill Clinton under his administration was really fostered we should really try to create home ownership. Same language we're using. We learned a valuable lesson is that home ownership is a privilege, not a right. And I know that you spoke to that and when you were at the MBA as chairman, and there's a lot of things. How do we avoid some of those mistakes? How do we not have history repeat itself, Bill?
Well, David, I think I think the term affordable lending is truly a misnomer because, affordable lending isn't the problem and it is not the solution. What you need is affordable home ownership. And we hear that there's 5 million, we are 5 million single family homes short of a proper inventory in the country. And basic supply and demand, right? Interest rates have went up 400 basis points, but the prices of housing have went down like 6% or 5%. Well, the only reason in there is because you have a shortage. So in the end, I don't think we need to give mortgages away. I don't think we need to lower our lending standards. We don't need to do any of those things. What we need to do is there is a simple housing shortage in America, and in the Rust Belts, the neighborhood I grew up as a kid, those homes are getting old and dilapidated. There needs to be a real revitalization of neighborhoods in this country, but it needs to be, we need to demand it being a priority of future administrations. When is the last time that there's been a true housing, initiative in the country? I'll say this, and then we can go on to something else. We have the best housing system ever created by mankind in the world. But I really believe over the last 20 years, this country has taken it for granted. We've taken it for granted, and now it's starting to show somewhere in tear because we haven't built enough homes. So we need a wake up call in this country. We need to build more homes, and we need to stop taking for granted the best housing system ever created in the world. That's my stump speech.
It is good. And if you run for office, I promise I'll vote for you on that one. But it's very true. But I think it's making the noise in Washington, D.C., making noise at the state level to make impact. And I hope the next generation catches that, because I think the impact, what you've done so successfully in our industry has been one of the catalysts to have a voice, to have your voice heard, and done it in a way that is tasteful and has affected change. We got a lot more changes coming ahead of us. But one of the things that you have changed is you are bringing young, fresh faces, energy, minds into our industry. And you're sitting in a room with a whole bunch of interns listening to us right as we do that. And I applaud you for that. We've talked about that before. And by the way, listeners, if you have not listened, go to the Licking on Leadership podcast and download Bill's interview that I did with him on the Licking on Leadership podcast. It's one of the most downloaded podcasts that we have in that series because of the things he talked about there. So interns there in the room, if you have not listened to Bill talk on the Licking on Leadership podcast, download it. It's something for the textbooks, and it's one I hope that'll be listened to for generations to come. But when you look at the next generation, what is the vision and what is the problem that you're solving with this next generation that you're bringing in? Again, I applaud you for it, but what is the problem you're solving? Seems pretty obvious.
It's really not a problem as much as it's an opportunity. And Alice, Alice can chime in. She's a big part of this. So we all of us, I mean, gosh, I'm 60 and I got in the mortgage business when I was 23, and we all fall into it in our own way. We all fall into this by accident. And I think at the end of the day, if you expose young people to a career in mortgage banking, there's 25 different career paths in a mortgage company. So I think it's so dynamic. And if you expose young people to it, sometimes it catches fire. And even if it doesn't catch fire, then we've exposed young people, we believe, to what a world-class organization and a culture is all about that they could take with them throughout their career. Alice and her team is a big part of it. And quite honestly, we just love exposing young, bright people and students to mortgage banking and the passion that we have for it. And maybe, they'll find the same passion we found. And if not, they actually get exposed to what true, what being a professional is about, what working with others is about, when you don't exactly agree on the solution, how do you handle that the next day? And it's 100 days a year that we have with our interns. It's an award-winning program, and we just love doing it. Alice, why don't you speak? David, if you don't mind, I'd love. Alice is a big part of this program. Alice, what do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Bill, because the number one thing I think they walk away with is how wonderful our culture is. And from there, then they start to learn to love mortgage banking. It's surprising how many of them come in and go, I don't even know what a mortgage is, right? None of them have one to start with. And when they come in and they meet the wonderful people that work here, they realize what a great place this is to work. And so folks who had no idea they wanted to be in mortgage banking now go, wow, this is exciting. Our end goal is we put people in houses. So what we do as a company is rewarding and has its ways that get back to the community. We have all types of things they can participate in, like the Union Home Foundation, which they all love that. So there just really is a lot for them to love and to hang on to and want to make part of their career and to start to build a career here.
Alice, let's start with you, and then Bill, chime in on this one. Is talk about the program and specifically the curriculum. How do you bring them, and what are some of the things that when you look at the deer in the headlights as they're looking at you and their eyes are open, what are the things that they're trying to figure out, and how do you get them excited about this industry, Alice?
So we spend a lot of time planning. We start really in January, and even after the one group leaves, we're already thinking of what we can do better the next time. And we start planning to make sure that we've got very meaningful work for them to do. I think that's the key, is so many of them come in. You can ask the folks in the room, Bill, right? How many of them actually feel like they're doing meaningful work? We don't.
Oh, they're doing real work. They're doing real work.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time prepping and planning so that when they get here, we have specialized onboarding programs for them, lots of fun activities. And I think that's key, making sure that they get meaningful work and projects that are both long-term and short-term. So they get an instant reward, and also they're part of something they can leave behind.
I really find it exciting. And also I think one of the keys is you move them through the various disciplines, the various departments within the organization. If I remember when we talked about this before, Alice and Bill, I think one of the plans is you try to get them exposure to the various aspects of the various disciplines. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be, we do. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bill. Yeah, we have an Excel program, we call it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's Alice's Excel program, but We really expose the interns to real work. They do the same work that the professionals do day in and day out. Believe it or not, they do. And also we expose them. We bring them into every meeting, unless it's personnel. We bring them into every meeting. They see the meetings that we're making big decisions at the organization, and maybe there's 5 good answers and we got to find the best answer. And they're also in the meetings where, we have a problem that's an opportunity, and we've got 6 people in a room that when we walk in the room, we've got about 80% of it figured out. But the last 20%, David, as you know, is always the hard part. And we're walking through that. And so we really expose them to every aspect of running a business and a career. And they really appreciate the fact that it is a full-blown professional experience, and they respond well with it. They really do.
Mark Helm, good to have you on the interview with me. You're a professor. You're an educator yourself. Your daughter is a professor. So any thoughts or reflections on this aspect before I move on to the next section?
Yeah, I think a couple ones. Bill, I salute you for what you're doing. What you're doing is really something that's been missing from the equation in our country and business for years. And the people that have done it have usually done okay job, but it sounds like you're doing an excellent job. And I think what you're going to do is create some real business leaders for the future, because I'm sure what they can learn there, they can take to any business. So I think you're really innovative to do that. And I'm glad to hear about your program. And I think it'll be meaningful for not only your company, but for those people for their careers to come. And that you can't do any better than that. That's what it's all about out there. But I would ask you one question. Think about one question, and you might do this already. When you bring the individuals into your meeting, do they speak up and give you their comments about what they hear?
Afterwards, we do a debrief almost after every meeting, Mark, because while it's still fresh, want them to ask questions of anybody in the room. A lot of times it's me, but anybody in the room, and we'll talk through the whys of what happened and when. So we do virtually an immediate debrief on every meeting while it's fresh, and it seems to be very high impact. And then once in a while, depending on what the subject matter is, we'll open it up, for the interns to talk to the group at times before the group disbands. So it's immediate, high impact, on the spot learning.
Well, I'm just going to now nominate you for being the Professor of the Year, because you broke the code.
That's good. When you talk about growth, and you guys are enjoying some good growth in a contracting market, you seem to be growing relative to many of the counterparts. Many of our counterparts out there wringing their hands. What can we do? What we do? You're doing something, which is, again, going to the opening comments about your man of action. One of the things about growth, Bill, is getting new people in. You're doing that through the intern program. You're obviously doing a great job recruiting, but I want to focus on retention. You have people that stay there. Alice, I was so awed that you recruited someone like Alice to come in. And now she's been there for what has it been? What did we say? How many years has it been? 6
years.
7 years?
6.
Yeah. I mean, so people come there, Bill, and you created a culture where people want to stay. How have you cracked the code on retention? Because we've had a lot of revolving doors at a lot of mortgage companies in this industry.
Yeah. David, Alice she might be better at answering this than I, but, I think it's about collaboration and, having a lot of open, honest conversations, right? And especially the topics that you're not going to fully agree on, and there's no perfect answer. So I think it's having systems in place and having a culture of open, honest, continual conversations, a lot of conversations about the why, why this decision versus that decision. And I think if people feel valued, invested, and they are able to speak up and, discuss how they feel about a certain topic, I think people respond to that. And then also, our culture is one where there's, we could disagree on the answer. We could disagree on the problem. We'll attack problems, but we won't attack each other. And so I think there's a trust that's developed that you're attacking the problem, you're attacking the solution, but you're not attacking each other. And once that trust develops, it's a little easier to get through the hard days. And that's what I think the secret recipe is. Alice, you want to clean that up?
Please add to that, Alice. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna brag about Bill Cosgrove because it all starts at the top, and he is an amazing leader. His vision is always clear, and one of the things that there's many things, but one of my favorite things that they say repeatedly that Bill says our top sales leadership and our top ops leadership will say is this is a team sport. We are all in this together. Sales isn't trumping ops. Ops isn't trumping sales. We work to solve problems, and sales is always there to say they're accountable. As a matter of fact, we talked about that even in a meeting this morning about everybody has minimum standards. You mentioned that earlier in the call, and that's one of the things that makes it so wonderful to work here is the high quality people. We all work every day to come in with a positive attitude. We bring our own attitudes and meet those minimum standards. Bill, you want to talk about that team sport concept? I think that's really one of the secret sauce pieces.
Well, it starts with the salespeople, right? Because in a lot of cultures, it's so sales dominant and everybody else is subservient. And our sales folks, and especially our President's Club loan officers, they are truly team players where they hold themselves and their teams responsible, which makes it easier on ops and so forth. So it really is I think a culture of, as Al says, at Union Home, we want to be world-class people that happen to be world-class mortgage bankers, but it starts with being truly world-class people, and we just won't compromise on that. And when we have problems, we're honest about it, and we're honest about what we think the solution is. So, it's really my mother, who's passed away 6 years ago, my mom could have ran Union Home Mortgage. It's really what our parents or grandparents, taught us about human values, right, David?
So in human values, it's respecting people. That doesn't mean we always have to agree. And
That's
I think
right.
it's learning how to disagree, but do so in an agreeable fashion. And I think it's that healthy debate. Alice, I'm going to go to you because you've sat in the meetings and you've watched, and I'm not asking for an example, but describe how a healthy debate happened at Union Home.
Well, I can tell you every week we have a meeting where we go through underwriting policies. So the agencies issue a memo. Here's the interpretation. Here's the sales interpretation, the ops, the QC interpretation. So every Wednesday at 9:30, I call it CPG day, we meet and we talk that through and we weigh out what are the risks, what are the benefits, what does sales need. And in that meeting, we solve and agree to, from everyone's perspective, what's the right thing to do for the company and look out for the Cosgrove portfolio at the same time. So that it happens every single day, but that's one example of a steady Eddie meeting every single week.
So is this a factor, going back to the retention formula, is this a factor that keeps people there, Bill?
Absolutely. I mean, we're not making decisions in a vacuum. We have a meeting every morning at 8:00, which is a senior management meeting that some days has 80 people throughout the country. Some days have 110. And it's our kitchen table, David. It's our kitchen table where anybody could bring any subject matter to be discussed and worked out. So we start our day at the kitchen table, which is where all good discussions happen. And that's a great way to start the day as a business family. And that's what we do.
I love the word business family. And then when you say, it's a team sport, I mean, we hear those phrases, but it's living those and living them out and being an example of how a team shows up, because there's a lot of people, when you look at different teams, they say it's a team sport, but you look at an iconic individual. I'm thinking one particular basketball player, which it has a tendency to be. I mean, there are really strong skill sets within a team. But it's when you get the strength of the whole group, it's so much more powerful. Let's talk about growth from the standpoint of recruiting. You guys are growing. You're out looking at companies. You pick up companies. What would you say to the executives that are out there saying, I'm done, I'm looking for a home? Why would they want to join Union Home? Other than the reasons we've already talked about, I guess.
Yeah. I think we, number one, for better or worse, we don't have, and I'm not saying this is bad in and of itself, David, but, we don't have private equity in the deal that is just looking for a return. We have a long-term view of the market. We have a pure mortgage banking view of the market. I don't have any other type of investor that is looking again just for the monetary today, and it's got to be a 20% return. So cut the corners you need to cut to give me a 20% return within 4 or 5 years. There's none of that. We have none of that. It is a pure long-term mortgage banking growth. We're committed to the business. We're committed long-term. We're investing in great people. We're still profitable. It's hard, but with our servicing portfolio, which is 21 billion, which for our size is spinning off very good cash today. And I mean, gosh, you and I had these conversations many times. You almost taught me this. It's counter-cyclical, to originations. And so we're able to take our profitability, which is skinny, but reinvest that in the business. And we think today, while everybody is hiding under the covers, that, we're going forward in a responsible way. And so when you look at that, we think our offerings are amongst the top in the industry. And gosh, a lot of wonderful people are choosing Union Home today throughout the country. So we're excited about that. But I really think it's just simply, we're pure mortgage bankers today, and there is no plan B, my friend. There's no plan B.
That's good. Mark, I want to come back to the servicing issue with you in just a minute, but I have another question it's the counter side of that question. Who is not a good fit? Someone who's looking to make a move. You'd say, we're not the home for this. Who do you filter out? And what are some of those filters?
Alice, I think Alice can help here too. I don't think we have to filter anyone out, because before we hire folks, we bring them to Cleveland, we bring them to Northeast Ohio to our campus, and, they spend a few days and they roundtable with all of our senior executive teams. We want them to see ops. We want them to see sales. We want them to see IT, secondary. We want people to spend time with everybody. And by the end of the trip, you really know if someone views the world the way we do, or we may not be the best fit for them. And if we're not the best fit for them, we're okay with that. And we respect that. And we don't really try to force it. It's not good for the professional, and it's not good for Union Home. So I think we're really authentic to who we are. We're always trying to be better. We're not saying we're perfect or we have everything right. We're evolving to be better every day. But I think we're pretty authentic, and it's part of our culture. Alice, I think you could comment on this. We're pretty authentic to who we are. And I think mortgage professionals really appreciate that authenticity.
Alice?
Yes, I agree. I think, and then if for some reason someone does make it in that, maybe starts to look around and go, wow, I don't know if I can live up to this accountability. There are minimum standards for loan officers. There are minimum standards for all of us. And, people will find out pretty quickly, hey, I really love this. This works for me. I like the accountability. I like the environment. But you do occasionally have the folks go, no, this is too much accountability for me. And,
I think that's what
decide on their
Mark,
own.
I think that Mark, one of the things that we've noticed in our years of consulting is accountability is a good thing, but not everyone embraces accountability. I'd love to get your thoughts on this interview, where we've gone so far. Look, we can't believe we've already gone as long as we have. We got to wrap this thing up at some point, but your thoughts, Mark?
Well, I'd like to put a couple questions in here right now, if I could. One for Bill, comes right out from me. Bill, listening to you talk and see all that you've accomplished, what do you see on the list for Bill to accomplish the remaining time he's involved in industry? I think you're kind of like David and I. You'll be around this industry today. They carry you out the door. And I can tell that right now from this conversation. But what's on your list that you would like to accomplish in the next 10 years, say?
I would say that, for us, I probably grew Mark, it's a great question. I probably grew the organization slowly and maybe a little too conservatively for too long, because I wanted to make sure that, that we were accountable from a financial standpoint, and that, we were able to build the servicing portfolio. But I will tell you that at this point in my career, we're a 9-time top workplace. We've won every award there is to win. And I think today we are getting really good at scaling this business. I talked to my friend Bill Emerson, who I love the guy and his family, and we're competitors, but yet we're dear friends. And, Bill told me that it's a whole hell of a lot more fun to be big and good than small and good in our business. It's a scale business. So I would tell you, Mark, the Union Home has went from about 80th largest lender in America, and today we're about 35th and growing quickly. So we have learned to scale our business and do it in a way where we're actually getting better. So I would tell you that to answer that question directly, the last 10 years or so of my career is going to be about us scaling this business and winning in a more responsible but aggressive manner.
That sounds great. What a legacy, that's for sure. But you mentioned servicing there, and where I spent most of my career in servicing and operations, although I did do originations and all, first 10 years of my career. Talking about servicing nowadays is a trial and tribulation every day because of dealing with the GSEs and Ginnie Mae and all the changing requirements and looking at net worth and putting restrictions on. And Alice knows this stuff inside and out. How do you feel about servicing as a real integral part of your business and a go-forward basis?
It's another great question. We love it. At the end of the day, I mean, we literally, Alice, you see these numbers really running Union University. I mean, we have over a 99% 5-star rating with every customer we close a loan with. And so at that moment, the last thing you want to do, and there's some wonderful sub-servicers out in the marketplace that do a very good job. So nothing against sub-servicers, but my gosh, in that moment when you close over 99% of your loans and that customer gives you a 5-star rating, we want to keep that loan in the family and give them a world-class servicing experience, which we do, which will lead to the next home purchase or, many years on down the line, the next refinance. So, servicing that mortgage loan and keeping the Union Home brand long-term with that customer and that family, which connects the loan officer, which builds loyalty all the way around, Mark. It's really important for us to do. And, talk about scale and size. We're of the scale and size now that you could give great service to those customers and be profitable in servicing at our size. That's what we do. And we believe in servicing our own loans, and we're very proud of that.
Well, I'm going to pay you the highest compliment I can. Where can I fill out an application?
First, Alice runs Union University, so Alice is the big boss. I'm just the friendly guy in the corner. It's really you're going the wrong direction. You need to talk to Alice.
Not for servicing. We'll take you, Mark. That's we know you have a lot of expertise there.
Second. When you look at our industry, as we wrap this interview up, Bill, when you look at our industry, is this moving to the advantage of now the bigs? You went from 80th to 35th.
Yeah.
Is the advantage really now gone to the point where you've got to be at a scale? Certainly Bill Emerson over there at Quicken and Rocket. Yeah. I mean, the success that they have had is just amazing. Do you have to be that big, or is there still a place for the entrepreneur new entree into the marketplace? Thoughts?
It's, gosh, I would never stomp on anybody's dreams. I think you could be world-class at any level, David, I really do. But my gosh, the economics of this business it costs millions of dollars to compete in technology. It costs multi-millions of dollars to compete in marketing. Obviously, even though there's been layoffs in the industry, labor is never cheap. You have to invest a lot of money to be world-class. So I would never say that you can't be small. You can't be the 150th largest lender in America and not be world-class. I would never say that. But I do think over time, the scale of mortgage banking cannot be denied. It truly is a scale business. You got to execute. You got to close loans on time, no matter if you're the largest lender in America or the 1,000th largest. So there's fundamentals that always have to be there that we never forget at Union Home. But scaling the business is vitally important. But again, it always comes down to you've got to close loans on time every time, and you've got to treat your customers and your partners, your employee partners, in a world-class manner. And I think that, in some ways, some of the fundamentals I started with in 1985, they haven't changed. Some of it hasn't changed. And I think once in a while, people try to make it a little too complicated. It's really not that complicated. Take great applications, be honest with people, close loans on time, and be honest. And mortgage banking is pretty good business to be in if you do those things.
Bill, I know how busy you are, and I'm so grateful that you would join us and allow us to have Alice to join us again. I'm always grateful that you let Alice join in on the podcast each and every week. Again, fabulous contribution, Alice, to the podcast, but also fabulous contribution to what you're building there, Bill. Is when you draw in people, top professionals like Alice. Way to go. Kudos. And then to the interns that are sitting there in the room, and you could not pick a better place to be working or at least interning in. I hope you choose this industry because there's nothing that can transform lives. And when you touch lives, as the mortgage industry does, there's nothing more impactful or cause you to want to stay in an industry than changing lives. And that's what we do as an industry. And Bill, you're doing that in a glorious fashion. Congratulations to getting to number 35. I expect you to be in the top 10 in time. And also congratulations being a 9-time top workplace winner. That is an accomplishment. Way to go.
Well, thank you, my friend. You know how I feel about you and your contribution to the industry. And I really value our friendship, and it's a blessing that your friendship is a blessing. And Mark, thank you for all the, these type of communications industry wide just simply make us better. And I really appreciate it. And the interns here, these guys, we along with Bridget, we had breakfast at 7:30 this morning. So they're learning what a work day's like in mortgage banking. And it's, they're getting a full taste of it. We're having a good time together.
You get an intern to turn out for breakfast at 7:30. That's an accomplishment in itself.
Are you kidding me? They're never late. These young people are. I got news for you. America is in good hands moving forward. It is in good hands. These young people are really, they're wonderful young people. And this country's in good hands.
I'm teasing the interns there. I'm looking at how I used to sleep. Teasing.
Really.
Bill, thanks so much for being here. Alice, thanks for joining in. Thanks, Mark, for joining in on yet another podcast. Always fun to talk to leaders, Mark, and we certainly have one here.
Sure do.
Bill,
thank you, Mark.
Alice,
Thanks,
thank you. Interns, thanks for all being a part of this podcast. Blessings to you.
Thank you, partner.
Success.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update with your host, David Lykken of Transformational Mortgage Solutions. Join us next week, and thanks for listening.